Hey everyone, Shaun Stevenson here, author of the Throne series, and unfortunately, we gotta talk about this book. Oh, I wanted to like this book so badly, and I feel so awful that I have to say I didn't like it. I feel so awful about that, actually, because this book had a lot of promise. Now, here's the deal. I have been reading quite a few books lately that I have had to reframe the book in my head of what kind of book it is because it's billed by the marketing as this over here, but it actually ends up being this. And I feel like that's kind of tricky because obviously you want to sell your book. So the marketing team is going to try and sell it. And if they don't exactly believe that what the book actually is going to sell the book, they might embellish it a little bit. And I think that's what happened here, unfortunately. So let's talk about this book. The book we're talking about is called Hunt for Eden Star, book number 1 in the Beacon Hill series by D.J. Williams. Now, this is a YA book, which I know, I'm reading a YA book. It's out of the norm for me. Usually I read middle grade. And this is a very long YA book. In fact, this book is about 500 pages. So this is a long book. And I'm just going to say it took me forever to read it. I got this book from my local library, and unfortunately, it took so long to read. I actually had to renew it because the time period for reading it ran out because it just was taking me such a long time to get through this book. Now, Hunt for Eden Star, it is billed as an Indiana Jones globe-trotting adventure with demons and spiritual stuff going on where this kid, Jack Reynolds, is having to fight like all these demons as he's hunting for an ancient artifact that can change the destiny of the world. That is how it's billed. And so I went into this book thinking, all right, we'll probably have a little bit of setup and then we'll get into this treasure hunt because that's how the book is being sold, is this big treasure hunt that this kid goes on and he's trying to find all these clues and things like this. That is not what this book is at all. This book is actually more like a Harry Potter book, but if you took the very pedantic, slow, quiet moments from every Harry Potter book and stuffed them into the first 150 pages of this book. That's what this is. The first 150 pages of Hunt for Eden Star is this kid at school. He's at like a boarding school in Hong Kong, which I will be talking about the setting later because that is something to talk about. He's at this boarding school in Hong Kong, and what I thought would be this very exciting adventure story with lots of stuff going on really meandered for the first 150 pages. We go to class with Jack. We go to the cricket games with Jack. We go out on the town with Jack, where he's just going to see the shops. We go on the metro with Jack. We learn about him swiping his octopus card to get on to the metro. We go to the dorms with Jack. We go to the fun hiding spots that all the kids on the campus like to go to. That's what this is for the first 150 pages. And I kept thinking to myself, when does this book pick up into the adventure portion? Because I don't know what's going on with this thing. Why are we doing this for so long? I kept thinking to myself, the chapters were so short. And so I'd read a chapter and then I'd be like, okay, now we're going to get to the treasure hunting stuff. And maybe we'll get to a clue. Maybe we'll get to a thing. And it just kept going in this boarding school for so long. And there would be these random short 3-page chapters where we would cut to somebody else and it would be like a crime scene investigation, but you have no context for who the people are, what the crime is, what's happening. And that would be the short little 3 pages in the midst of this 150-page section of the book where you're just thinking, wait, what was that? Are we going to come back to this? And by the time you do come back to it in 250 pages, you've kind of forgotten almost everything about that because it's been so long ago, and it feels like it was so long ago. There are very long books. I have read very long books. I do not just read short books. I have read some very long books in my life, and there are so many of them that do not read as if they're 500 pages. This one reads as if it's 500 pages, especially the beginning. Now, after that 150 pages, you do move into some of this artifact kind of hunting, but this is the second book I've read like this recently, where there's going to be this promised artifact hunt, but almost all the clues have already been solved by somebody else who is not in the picture anymore. And all the clues kind of fall into the lap of the main character who just has to finish the journey. And this is like the second time I've read a book like this recently. And I just thought, I don't like this. Like, I really like them starting at the beginning of the treasure hunt. If we're going on a treasure hunt, I want to watch them get the clues. I want to see them move from clue to clue to figure it out. Kind of like 39 Clues or an Indiana Jones prequel novel or any of those sorts of stories. I just kept thinking, this is not quite it. And I don't really love this. Now, there's also a spiritual warfare aspect to this book. This is a Christian book, and there's a spiritual warfare aspect to this book, but it is very murky. I kept thinking, like, what is the rules of this? Like, what's happening here? Like, I'm not really sure what's going on. We go to some other realms at some points where you're kind of just left wondering, like, what is this place? Not a lot is really explained. Now, this is book one of a series, so I understand saving some mystery for later, but you've got to still give your reader enough in the book you're in order to help them understand what is happening so they can keep going and see what's going on and find out what's next, all those sorts of things, and keep you engaged, because that's what this book did not do. Now, I don't just want to be a negative Nelly, so and sorry to all the Nellies. I don't want to be a negative Ned or a negative Shaun, because there's so much more also going on in this book. Now, here's the thing. This book, I felt like it was written in multiple different spurts of writing. And what I mean by that is I feel like DJ Williams maybe wrote parts of this, and then it's like he set it aside for a long time and then wrote more of it, because Jack, the main character, often has a very different personality depending on where we are in the book. And it felt like some chapters had been written at a different time than other chapters, because Jack's character totally changes multiple times in the book. And I just thought, wait, he's really jokey now and kind of like cracks a lot of jokes with people, whereas before he's like really introspective and doesn't really talk to a lot of people. I don't really understand. This personality switch is very hard to follow. I will say, you do get some cool moments with some of the supernatural elements in this book, and I thought, oh, this is really awesome. And you have a few very short fight scenes that were very exciting. So I kept thinking, oh, this is really difficult. There's some pieces of this I really like, and there are parts of it that I'm just like, I feel like we didn't get the jigsaw puzzle together here. Like, we've got all the pieces, we just didn't put it together quite right, because some of these pieces seem like they're in the wrong spots, and maybe we should actually take out those pieces. So this book was kind of disappointing, but another huge good thing about this book, though, the setting. Oh, I loved the setting of this book. This book is set in Hong Kong and in the surrounding areas around Hong Kong, and it was so much fun to explore those areas with Jack. I love this because DJ Williams actually lived in Hong Kong for a while, so he's speaking from personal knowledge of the area. And I loved that because you can tell that he obviously knows this place, he knows it well, he describes so many things in such detail that's really fun. Like, the descriptions are so rich in this book. And I kept thinking, like, oh, this is really great and really fun. And I really enjoyed the setting of this book. And like, he comes up with these very interesting areas and places that Jack goes to that I really liked. Like, that was the most fun part of this book. And I actually think That and the hope that something would be coming and would be happening were the things that really kept me going. Now, I will say, if you are a little squeamish about violence, near the end of this book, there are some very violent moments that kind of shocked me a little bit because the book had not been like that up to that point. So I thought, oh, what in the world is this? Like, what is happening? It was a very, very shocking moment. So that is definitely something to know. If you get squeamish about violence like that, this might not be the best book for you. But if you can just skip past that, then hey, go for it. Now, the question then is, should you read this book? Like I said, this is the first book in a series. There's 2 more books that are out. Well, 1 book is out and the second one is about to be out. So the question is, should you read this? I don't really know. I think if you go in knowing that this is not a rip-roaring, globe-trotting adventure, I think you would be fine. But if you go into this thinking it's going to be like an Indiana Jones, 39 clues, solve all the mysteries, find out what's happening kind of thing, that's just not what this is. It is a much more slowed down story than that. And I will say there is some interesting character development and some interesting things that Jack, the main character, is dealing with, which I don't want to talk about here because those would be spoilers. So I feel like there's some interesting things. There are a couple good twists as well that I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like, what's going on here? I actually was like 400 pages in, and I remember reading part of it, and I told my wife, I said, oh no, not the last minute twist going to pull me into this book after all this. So there are some twists and turns that are kind of interesting, but I don't know if it's worth it to read. I hate to say it. I wanted to like this book so much. I feel like I would be the target audience. I love this kind of stuff. I wish it had been marketed a little differently because I think I would have gone in with the knowledge of, okay, this is like a school story, like a boarding school story for quite a bit of this book. There's a lot of that kind of stuff going on, like a lot of like relationships and things like that as well, that I just was not expecting based on the marketing for this book. So at the end of the day, I would give Hunt for Eden's Star a 2 out of 5 stars for me. Someone else might really love this book, and that's totally fine. These are all just opinions. So you might really like it. I just didn't really like it. I didn't really like the execution of it. It just didn't come together for me. I will admit, though, all that said, I have morbid curiosity about book 2. I don't think I would buy these books. I definitely would do the library with these. And I don't think my library has book 2, but if they did get book 2 in, I would be tempted. I would be tempted to pick it up and read it. That's where I think I'm at, which is interesting because of how slow and how much I didn't really love this book. But it's like that thing where you're like hoping maybe there's something coming that will explain these things and will open up the story world into a whole new place. Because I feel like a lot of exposition has happened in this first book. So in book 2, you might be able to hit the ground running and just keep going. I don't know. I'm really torn on it. Have you ever been torn on a book like this? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd be curious to know what you have done with that. So until next time, everybody, keep reading. Bye.